Hello programmers, today I will provide you a beginner level explanation on what is a for loop with Python examples. I believe you will get a very good grasp on what is a for loop after watching this video. Looping is executing a process repeatedly over something until a certain need is satisfied. There are different types of loops used in Python. A for loop is often used to iterate over a sequence and automate a repetitive task on that sequence. Let's look at an example. These are my two input sequences. I will use two lists here, and this is my first for loop. In the first line of a for loop, you will always see for in and a colon at the end of the first line, and then we have this numbers list, which is the collection of elements, and we have another variable called number. This number variable takes the value of each element in this numbers list. At each step, the for loop runs. For example, in the first step of the for loop, the value of number will be 3. In the second step, value of number will be 4. And at the final step, the value of number will be 8. The colon at the end of the first line tells Python that the next line is a start of a new code block that should be executed for each value this number variable takes. Let's run the code. As expected, at each iteration of this for loop, the loop printed each value in our input numbers list. It does not matter how many elements are there in the input collection for this for loop. It will run until the input collection is exhausted, and then it will move to the next line. Keeping these spaces at the beginning of the second line is called indentation. Python uses this indentation to indicate a new block of the code. Usually we use 4 spaces here for the ease of readability, but you can change it as your requirement, but it should at least have 1 space and should be readable too. What if we have 2 lines in this indented code block? We can write something like this: print number multiplied by 2, and then run the code. We see the number, and that number is multiplied by 2. Then next number, it is multiplied by 2. So this indented code block runs for each iteration in the for loop. If we can use break here, we can understand this better. Let's run this, and you can see this 3 and 6 only get printed. That means after one iteration, the for loop is broken, and in the first iteration we see both these 3 and 6 values are printed from this code. A couple of things to keep in mind: every indented line following the first line execute only once for each value in this input list. If you do not use indentation correctly, you will get either indentation errors or unexpected results. Keep that in mind. Next, I will show you a couple of more things that we can do with the for loop. What if you need only the first 3 elements from this input numbers list? In that case, we can slice the input list by using this notation. Start from the beginning and get the value until the index is 3. The index of Python starts with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Python do not include the last value we provide here, so we will get only first 3 values. You can slice it like this and then run the code. So we get only first 3 elements. So what this explains is start from the beginning and end, not including the third index. Next, if you need to print the elements in reverse order, you can do it like this. You can have 2 colons and -1. Then this will print all the numbers in reverse order. What this notation explains is get this list in reverse order. This is called slicing, and it is a topic for another video. One more thing that I need to show you. So what if you need to iterate over the list not based on the element but based on the position? For that, you can use this notation. you can get the range and length of the numbers list. This will give you the access not to the numbers but to the indices of these numbers. Now you see, instead of the numbers, you are getting the index of these numbers, simply the position of these numbers in the list. So why this is important? Suppose the numbers in this list are not in the order, so you need to order that. In that case, you can't just move things in this list with each other. So you can move the numbers based on the position that they are in. This is a little complex concept. I will explain it further in a separate video. Next, we have this list called names. I will show you one last thing. We can write a for loop like this: for name in names, get the indentation, and I need to print all the names except the name Steve. So I will write if name is equal to Steve, continue, and then we can print the name. So what this continue does is, it's simply a placeholder. If this name variable is equal to Steve, it will simply continue to the next iteration of the for loop, and it will not execute the next line of the current iteration. In this way, we can keep the for loop from printing Steve, but it will print all the other names. Let's run this code and see the output. There it is. We don't see Steve. Finally, I would like to mention that it is important to use this correct variable names in your for loop, because later when you write complex codes, it is much easier to troubleshoot when you come across with bugs in your code, which is inevitable for any programmers. Even using singular and plural names will be helpful. This is all for this video. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section, and subscribe to the channel if you like to see similar videos. Thank you and happy learning.